nag-usap na lang kayo kung paano susuplayan yung pharmaceuticals na mga face masks, face shields, PPEs, and other items. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, totoo po yun na may pinapakilala po si Mr. Micheal Yang ng mga suppliers at yung mga friends na tumulong para dito sa PPE project. Totoo po yun.
Yun lang ang role niya. Hindi na siya nakialam pagkatapos ka maipakilala sa mga suppliers.
I'm not privy to their what's their discussion pero may pinapakilala talaga siya. Kung ano yung discussion nila, hindi ko na alam.
Hindi maliwanag, ano? Okay. Ang sabi ni Mr. Yang, ang role niya lang, ipinakilala sa iyo yung mga tao sa China na nakakilala niya. Pagkatapos wala na siya kinalaman, ikaw na lahat na nakipag-deal doon sa mga suppliers. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, nakikipag-usap talaga kami sa mga supplier na pinakilala niya. Yes po.
Hindi, ang tinatanong ko, wala na ba siyang kinalaman? Umalis na siya, kayo na lang ang nagtuloy-tuloy ng usap at hindi na nakialam si Mr. Yang.
Hindi ko, well, paano pong
Yung
hindi
diretsong sagot lang, Mr. Lincoln.
Sige po, Mr. Chairman. Ano po ulit yung tanong niyo para maintindihan ko na maayos at isagot ko na
Ganito
maayos?
ang flow, no? Sabi ni Mr. Yang, ang papel lang niya, ipinakilala ka sa 4 na suppliers from China.
Opo.
At wala na siyang ginawang iba pa. Ikaw na lahat ang nagpatuloy kung paano makipagtransaksyon, kung paano tumanggap ng supplies at makipag-deal do sa mga suppliers na sinasabi niya, ipinakilala lamang sa iyo.
In addition to that, Mr. Chair, he also guarantees for us. Nagka-guarantee sila para sa amin. Kasi totoo po yung analysis ni Mr. Chairman na medyo challenging talaga pagdating sa financial.
Anong klaseng guarantee? Ang ginagarantiyahan niya na makakabayad ka?
Yes po.
Magkano nailabas mo ng cash?
Can you take out your mask para maintindihan ka namin maigi?
Mr. Chair, positive po ako sa COVID. Tapos po may mga tao din po sa bahay. Dito po ako sa sala.
It's okay.
Nag-iisa ka sa kwarto ngayon? Nag-iisa ka sa kwarto?
Hindi po. Nandito po ako sa sala namin kasi nandito po yung mga computer at yung iPad.
Wala kasama dyan?
Meron po may baby po ako at mga tao. And then this is medyo open space din. So
Sige, then speak a little louder, okay?
Opo, yes, Mr. Chair, yes po.
Okay, Mr. Ong.
Sorry sa introduction. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dahil sinabi mo na wala nang kinalaman si Mr. Yang kung hindi maggarantya, paano mo binabayaran yung mga Chinese suppliers? LC, money transfer, or cash? Paano mo binayaran sila? Kasi malaking halaga ito eh.
Yes po, Mr. Chair. May mga portion na kami na nagbayad sa mga suppliers dahil meron po naman kami mga pondo sa amin. At syempre, mga savings ng mga our incorporators, our partners. And then there are certain items that we need. We don't have enough funds to settle. So Mr. Micheal Yang guarantees for us.
So hindi totoo na pinakilala ka lang at tapos na. Tuloy-tuloy ang kanyang participation by way of continuously guaranteeing sa mga suppliers na babayaran sila. Parang utang. Sabihin na natin
Mr.
na
Chairman,
credit.
I think medyo may na-miss si interpreter kanina na I think Mr. Micheal Yang also mentioned that he guaranteed for us.
No. Guarantee meaning salita lamang. Laway lang na ito, si Mr. Ong, kaya kayong bayaran ito. Yun lang. Ikaw lahat ang nagbabayad. Ang tanong ko sa iyo, how did you pay the suppliers? Money transfer, LC?
Yung mga ibang supplier namin talaga nag-transfer talaga kami. Wala pa naman pong LC nung time na yan. Tapos may mga ibang supplier na hindi namin kayang bayaran. Humingi na po kami ng tulong kay Mr. Micheal Yang, which he guaranteed with the supplier na pag nakatanggap po kami ng bayad from the government, and then that's the time we pay na lang.
There you go. So medyo laway ang puhunan. hintay muna kayo makasingil sa gobyerno at hindi naman kayo makakasingil sa gobyerno kung hindi kayo nakapag-supply. So utang. At garantya ni
Ah,
Mr. Yang, kaya kayo pinayagan ng suppliers na tuloy-tuloy ang pag-supply sa inyo sa pamamagitan ng garantya ni Mr. Yang doon sa mga Chinese suppliers.
parang tama po kayo. So, ganito po yung ganito more or less
Sige.
ganito po yung logic. Yes po. Yes po.
Parang tama.
Lincoln, ganito, no?
Yes po.
Kasi
Yes.
mahirap na makipag-transact ka sa napakalaking halaga nang walang involved na mga letters of credit, no? Yung cash, parang garantya lang ni Mr. Yang, babayaran kayo niyan, pautangin kayo ng sabihin na nating 100,000,000 o bilyon, maski i-convert mo ng renminbi, malaking halaga yon. So tama na yung garantya ni Mr. Yang na babayaran kayo ni Mr. Lincoln Ong, supplyan nyo yan at sigurado makakasingil yan. Ganun ang gusto nyo palabasin, di ba?
Mr. Chairman, nung time na yun, actually we were expecting the project to be very quick eh. So, yun po. Humingi po talaga kami ng tulong kay Mr. Micheal Yang.
Hindi ko, parang ano eh, parang sari-sari store na o kaya parang transaksyon na bilihan ng sasakyan lang na o gagarantyahan ko, babayaran ka nito, binigay na sa iyo sasakyan. Eh ito, bilyon ito eh. Ganun bang kadali yun? At saka government
It was,
transaction. Dapat kumpleto yung inyong papeles, mga import permit. Siyempre sa customs mahigpit, hingan kayo ng mga letters of credit, di ba? Eh sabi mo walang letters of credit, wala kang maipapakita na LC. Ang sabi mo kung hindi cash, eh garantya lang ni Mr. Yang, eh dumarating yung supplies ninyo. Eh billion ito. Ganun kadali?
Mr. Chairman, hindi po talaga madali nung mga nangyari nung panahon na yon.
Hindi talaga madali. Kaya alam mo, Lincoln, hindi nga ka panipiniwala na ganun kadali ang transaksyon involving billions of pesos. Yun ang sinasabi ko. Nagarantya lang ni Mr. Yang, darating yung supply ninyo at sigurado raw kayo makakasingil. Ngayon, paano magagarantyahan ni Mr. Yang na makakasingil kayo kaagad para mabayaran yung mga sinusupply ng mga Chinese firms, yung 4 na Chinese firms?
Mr. Chair, I cannot answer for Mr. Micheal Yang.
Ayun nga, nagtuturuan na kayong dalawa ngayon. Sabi ni Mr. Yang, ikaw ang diretsong nakipagtransaksyon doon sa mga Chinese firms at siya lang ang nagpakilala. Ngayon, hindi ka privy sa pag-uusap ni Micheal Yang doon sa mga Chinese suppliers. Ang sinasabi naman ni Mr. Yang, hindi siya privy sa pakipag-usap mo sa mga Chinese suppliers. Now, which is the truth?
The truth is, Mr. Chairman, the truth is talaga, Mr. Chairman, tumulong talaga po si Mr. Micheal Yang. And then, I think he's really connected in China. Tapos po, meron naman po kaming NOAA nung time na yan. So I think it's also a good proof and boost of confidence to these suppliers.
Yeah, I know that. But this is a government transaction. Hindi ito yung bilihan. Nagkita kayo sa isang lugar, sa isang restaurant, pinakilala sa yung supplier, at naniwala yung supplier, sinupplyan ka ng kung ano mo yung pinag-uusapan yung bilihan. This involves billions of pesos. Sabi ko nga, hindi ganun kasimple na isang garantya pagbibigyan ka ng suppliers. Ang sabi ni Mr. Yang, hindi niya na alam kung paano kayo nag-usap ng suppliers. Ang sinasabi mo ngayon, hindi mo na alam kung paano nakipag-usap si Mr. Yang sa mga suppliers. Ang tanong ko, alin ang totoo sa dalawa?
Totoo po yun na pagdating sa negotiation ng mga delivery at pricing, kami na po talaga ni supplier nagka-finalize. Totoo po yun. At inaamin ko rin po na pagdating sa mga bayaran, we also need Mr. Micheal Yang's guarantee.
Parang paniwalaan yan, Lincoln, ano? Kasi napakalaking halaga nito. At government transaction pa ito para isimplify nyo ng ganon ang inyong pakipag-usap. So wala kayong LC.
Ano po? LC po,
yung
wala
LC,
po.
walang gamit na LC.
Wala po. Wala
Money
po, wala po
transfer.
LC po.
Money transfer.
Meron po, meron po. Meron po, meron po.
How did you make the money transfer? Bank to bank?
Pagdating po doon sa our internal operation, pagka nagre-remit po kami sa mga supplier, we use telex, yung maayos po na na transaction.
Do you have documents to show your proof of payment to sa mga suppliers?
We have all those document as long as it's wala naman pong rights or may violate sa amin, we are more than willing to cooperate.
Okay. How much in total did you pay the 4 suppliers? Doon sa mga dumating, yung na-procure ninyo and supplied to the PSDBM, magkano yung binayaran nyo sa mga suppliers?
Sir, Mr. Chairman, wala po kasi sa amin yung mga, sa akin po, wala po talaga sa akin ng record. I think I have to access our accounting records.
No, but ikaw nakipag-usap sa mga suppliers, may idea ka kung magkano yung presyo na binayaran mo doon, di ba?
Mr. Chairman, kasi medyo ano na po yun trade secret na po yun parang hindi po kaming komportable na ibulgar na lang po sa publiko.
Just as an intervention, Senator Lacson.
Go ahead, with the permission of Senator Lacson.
Yes, sir, these are public funds. These are subject to audit by the COA. And you better, and even if you do not testify, COA has the power to inquire. Pwede pong tanungin, tingnan ang records ng Farmally kung magkano binayad nyo sa inyong mga supplier. Lalo na po, kanina may testimony rito, na mukhang wala naman kayong pera, paano nyo na-erase yung 7 billion na pambayad ninyo? So pwede pong tingnan yan ng COA dahil transaction. Dahil pera ng taong bayan yan. Pwede pong nasa kapangyarihan ng COA na tingnan. So sabihin mo na kung ano ang totoo. Dahil pwede ma-check po yan.
Mr. Chair, thank you po to sa enlightenment. Definitely makikipag-cooperate kami sa mga ahensya pagdating sa mga ganitong investigation. Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Kaya nga, di sabihin mo na, makikipag-cooperate, tinatanong ka na, hindi mo naman sinasagot.
Mr. Chair, I myself alone cannot answer that question kasi kumpanya po kami, allow us to have a meeting on it, tapos pag-usapan namin, and then we seek guidance with our accountants and lawyer, and then definitely, pagka kinakailangan namin makipag-cooperate sa COA, gagawin po namin yun.
Okay, Mr. Lincoln Ong, with the permission,
Yes po,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Chairman, may I continue?
Puro Chinese talaga lahat, no?
Go ahead,
Puro
please.
verbal ba usapan niya? Did you have any document kung ano yung, meron kayong parang joint venture agreement with Mr. Yang?
We do have agreement po.
Yes. Do you have a copy of that agreement?
I don't have it with me, Mr. Chairman.
What kind of agreement do you have with Mr. Yang?
Hindi ko po talaga maalala nung mga specific content niya, Mr. Chairman. But sana po maintindihan nyo na kami po sa community namin, minsan, totoo po yun. Pagka minsan may mga transaction kami na minsan verbal talaga. Negosyante lang po.
But in this particular case, yung supplies ng mga PPEs, sinabi mo, meron kayong pinirmahan na agreement with Mr. Yang. Ang tanong ko, anong klaseng agreement? Anong klase yung pinirmahan yung dokumento? Anong form? Is it a joint
Mr. Chair,
venture agreement? Is it a contract?
Mr. Chair,
Can you please wait
Pwede po
for the
bang-
question to be formulated before you answer?
my apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, what document did you have or did you sign with Mr. Yang? Insofar as the supplies of the materials.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not really privy or hindi ko talaga ma-recall ngayon kung ano yung content, but we do have kasulatan po.
very important document, hindi mo matandaan kung anong form, joint venture ba, contract ba, hindi mo man lang maalala kung ano yon. This was a
Meron po talaga ganun.
Anong klase nga?
Mr. Chair, hindi ako maka kasi baka po mali yung mga masabi ko ngayon, tapos yung iba naman yung nakita ko.
Can you produce that?
Hanapin ko po, sir. Yes po.
Mr. Yang
Yes po.
signed that document, I suppose, correct? As well as you did sign the same document. I have a question. You haven't answered. Both Mr. Yang and you signed that document which you said is in your possession, di ba? You cannot just recall kung ano yung pinirmahan nyo, but you did sign on the same piece of paper, on the same document.
Yes po.
Can you produce that and submit that to the committee?
Hanapin ko po, sir. Hanapin ko po, and then definitely comply kami sa kung kailangan talaga.
Okay.
So when you were dealing with the Chinese suppliers, you were traveling to China?
Ay, hindi po.
Or who was traveling to China to deal with them?
Mr. Chair, kasi nung time na yan, that was pandemic. Maraming mga bansa ng mga
So-
borders, mga sarado po.
Okay. So how did Mr. Yang introduce you to the Chinese suppliers? They came here, you went there by phone?
Puro by phone lang po, Mr. Chair. Tapos may mga tao po naman kami sa China.
Telepono lang, tinawagan ka ni Mr. Yang, pinakausap sa iyo yung Chinese supplier, all four of them, maybe one after the other, and that's it.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes po.
Okay. So, meron ka bang nilabas na cash?
Dito po sa site namin, sa
Yes,
site po namin ng Farmally.
Sa Farmally.
Yes po.
Magkano?
Estimate, how much cash did you, for this whole transaction, how much cash did you shell out? Whether it's advance payment, partial payment, how much?
Mr. Chair, I really have to refer it to our other partners for that. Kasi I really don't have to record it with me now.
Sinong partners ang pwedeng sumagot? Nandyan lahat yung partners mo eh. Kindly mention
Mr.
the
Huang,
name.
do you think you can access any document, Mr. Chair?
Who are you referring to? Mr. Wang.
Mr. Huang,
Okay, Mr. Wang.
Mr. Huang.
Mr.
Chair,
Wang.
Mr. Huang, Mr. Chair, baka pwedeng makahingi po ng opportunity na para makapag opening statement po si Mr. Huang Suyan.
No. I'm asking him a question and you referred me to him. You referred the committee to Mr. Wang para sagutin yung tinatanong ko.
My apologies po.
How did you transact with or deal with the 4 Chinese suppliers? Kasi sabi mo, nirefer ka ni Mr. Yang. So how? Did you go to China? Did they come here? Sabi mo, by telepono lang. Ngayon, ang sagot mo, si Mr. Wang naman ang pwede sumagot noon. How? So I'm asking Mr. Wang. And now you're saying, mag-opening statement si Mr. Wang. Mr. Wang.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So how did you transact with the Chinese suppliers? The first time you were introduced by Mr. Yang.
I mean, to clarify one thing, I wish to state on record that Mr. Yang and I have not been in direct contact for since 2017 March. After that, after he introduced for my previous employer to invest in the companies, we stopped contacting each other. As for the question regarding how do we contact with the Chinese suppliers, I think most of the communications were done through WeChat. They will send us samples, they will send us pictures, and we'll relay to them our requirements of the amount, and then we will ask them for the supposed delivery dates and quantities they can match to that schedule, so that we can better prepare for our proposals.
So we're now back to Mr. Ong. Because
Yes po, Mr.
as you mentioned, after the March 2017 encounter with Mr. Yang in Davao, you never had the chance to see him again or to talk to him again. So we're back to Mr. Ong. Ang tanong, how did you deal with the Chinese suppliers? Did you go to China? Ulitin ko na naman. I hate to be repetitive, but you're not answering the questions directly.
Yes
The
po, Mr.
witness is
Chairman.
unresponsive.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'm here po. Sorry po, last na po talaga. Yung ano po yung tanong nyo, isasagot ko talaga na maayos.
Ang sabi mo, pinakilala ka sa mga Chinese suppliers. Ang tanong ko, paano kayo nagkita o nag-uusap ng Chinese suppliers? 4 yon. O, pumunta ka ba ng China? Sabi mo, hindi. Ang nirefer mo ako kay Mr. Wang. Sabi ni Mr. Wang, hindi niya naman nami-meet si Mr. Yang. Ikaw talaga yung kausap ni Mr. Yang. O, yun ang tanong.
Tama po kayo. Yes po, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman pala.
Hindi tama. How eh?
Ay, Mr. Chairman,
Nalilito
nag-uusap
siya.
talaga kami ng mga Chinese supplier through WeChats. Yung app po na WeChat.
Bilyon-bilyon ang usapan nyo. WeChat lang kayo ng WeChat.
We were really not able to travel that time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, this is such a parliamentary inquiry. What is the status of the warrants of arrest issued against these people? Those who were issued warrants of arrest? They still stand. Am I correct, Mr. Chairman?
The warrant of arrest was based on a contempt of not showing up. You can now issue another warrant for contempt for being evasive, and obviously the witness is being evasive, and the chair will entertain an motion to cite this gentleman in contempt for lying or evasiveness under the rules.
Yes, if I may move or issue the motion, Mr. Chairman, it's not only Mr. Ong that's being evasive. I think Mr. Yang, likewise, is being evasive because we cannot get a clear answer. They're
Yes,
pointing to each other, and clearly they're being evasive. So I would, I really would move either not to lift the warrant of arrest previously issued by the Senate President or issue a subsequent warrant of arrest for being evasive.
Well,
Against whom? Against whom?
Against Mr. Yang.
both Mr. Yang and Mr. Ong. That is the motion.
Na, kulong.
Well, the chair supports your motion, and the whole world will know that there is a pending warrant of arrest for Mr. Yang and Mr. Ong if the committee so pleases.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
All right. No objection. The chair hereby orders that Mr. Lincoln Ong and Mr. Yang are placed under arrest. And there are reasons for it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lacson. Mr. Yang was asked when was the only time he did not readily say that he presented himself during the meeting in May 17. You had to pry it out from him. On the other hand, this guy says, and he says that he never had any, wala silang dealing directly, sabi ni Mr. Yang, sa family. And yet ngayon, sinasabi ni Mr. Ong na nagagarantya si Mr. Ong. In fact, if I may add, sir, with your permission, Mr. Lacson, itong sinabi po ng Presidente, ano bang reklamo ninyo? Kasi si Micheal Yang daw, negosyante ito. Adre, hindi naman ito sabihin mo na nagtatapon ito ng pera. May contact ito sa China na malalaking korporasyon at siya ang nagpagador. In other words, siya ang gumagaransya talaga ng bayad o siya ang magbabayad sa made their entry here. So yun ang sinabi ng Presidente. Which, again, quote-unquote yun, which supports the statement made by Mr. Ong na ginagaransyahan ni Mr. Yang So hindi totoo na wala siyang transaksyon, ginagarantiyahan niya lahat yung ino-order nila. At dahil dyan, dapat nakita na talagang may relasyon talaga si Mr. Yang sa family. At ang masasabi ko lang, dapat tanongin pa natin si Mr. Ong para masarado na yung kanyang statement na makikita talaga na nagsisinungaling siya. And go ahead, Mr. Lacson. You can go ahead. This is your time to ask them.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ang sunod na tanong ko, dahil sinabi nila, binabayaran nila ng money transfer or cash yung suppliers. So, saan kayo bumibili ng foreign exchange? Kasi hindi naman nyo pwedeng bayaran ng pesos, di ba? So,
Tama.
how do you do it? Where do you buy your foreign exchange? In this case, renminbi. How did you secure the foreign currency to pay your suppliers?
Proper bank transaction po yun, Mr. Chairman. Hindi po siya renminbi, Mr. Chairman. US
Hindi siya
dollar po, Mr.
tinatanong kung
Chairman.
renminbi. Ang tinatanong sa'yo, saan ka kumukuha ng foreign exchange para bayaran yung mga tao doon? Siyempre,
Mr. Chair,
magre-remit ka. Magre-remit ka, di ba? O, saan kayo kumukuha ng pera pambayad doon?
pag dito
Nasaan
po
ka
sa
pera?
pag dito po sa Philippine side, we transact with our bank.
Sinong bank?
Union.
Union Bank. Union
At
Bank.
kailan kayo unang nag-transact?
We have to check the record, pero continuous naman yung
No,
transaction namin
sinabi
with
nga ni Wang na ang unang transaksyon niya sa Union Bank ay November. That is a full 7 months. 7 buwan magmula nung nakakuha kayo ng malalaking kontrata na sunod-sunod na linggo nung Abril. Sa record yan. Binasa ko
Yes
na
po.
kanina. So it took you 7 months bago kayo magsanta. Ang hiniram nyo doon, 500 million. Sa makatwid, nagbabayad kayo between that time ng pera. Saka lang kayo umutang nung nagkaroon na kayo ng pera. Kuno. Hindi ako naniniwala dahil ang tingin ko nagbabayad kayo. Pero hindi nyo masabi kung saan nyo kinukuha yung pera. Galing ba yan sa ibang sources na illicit?
Hindi po, Mr. Chair. Meron po kaming mga sariling pondo rin. At
Bigla may sariling pondo na naman. O sige.
opo.
Saan-
Specifically, Senator Gordon, kaninong pera, bank accounts, kung saan nanggaling yung niremit nyo sa mga supplier?
If ever magre-remit kami sa mga supplier, dapat po talaga manggagaling sa namin, sa bank account namin kasi
Kaya nga, so, aling bank, sino ang may-ari nito mga bank accounts at magkano ang niremit nyo?
corporation po namin, yung family pharmaceutical po.
Yung korporasyon nyo, Mr. Ong, ang pera is 625,000 lang.
Pesos.
Ikaw naman, peso, 625,000 pesos lang. Kaya hindi pwede bang gagaling sa korporasyon ninyo kung milyon-milyon ang binabayad nyo sa Chinese suppliers. Sabi mo, galing sa bangko. Tanong ngayon, sino ba may-ari ng mga account na yun?
Corporate account po, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, talaga nagsisinungaling ito eh.
Ay,
Talaga.
No,
How can it be a
Mr.
corporate
Chairman.
account with the
Mr.
account
Chairman.
where, sorry, Senator Ping.
Senator Lacson, go ahead.
established very clearly na ang pera ninyo 625 pesos. Ang tanong ni Senator Dillon, 625,000 pesos. Ang tanong ni Senator Dillon, 625,000 pesos. Tapos ang nire-remit ninyo, sabi mo, galing din sa corporation ninyo, sa Parmali, maliwanag yan. Hindi sa ibang corporation, hindi kayo nangutang at lahat. Saan ang galing yung perang nire-remit nyo sa China? Sabihin na natin galing sa bangko rito. Ang sagot mo,
Opo.
galing sa corporation nyo. Ang liit nga ng capital ng corporation ninyo, 625. That's the question. How do you reconcile that?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, pwede na po ba ako magpaliwanag?
Go ahead.
Kanina
Okay,
ka pa
thank you,
nagpapaliwanag,
Mr.
hindi naman
Thank
kita
you,
pinipigilan.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marami pong kasing series of transaction yun. So, meron naman po kami naiipon na pera. So that's our
Labo
pondo.
naman.
And then at the same time, sa mga series of transactions, pagka medyo malaki na po yung project, kinakailangan din po namin mangutang sa mga kaibigan.
Mhm.
So, hindi ko po dinideny na meron kaming mga utang sa labas.
Hindi naman yan ang problema eh. Bilyon-bilyon ang tinatransact nyo. Marami kayong kaibigan. Kailangan paliwanag kung saan rin kinuha ng mga kaibigan nyo yung pera niyan.
Paliwanag
Magpapaliwanag kayo sa Money Laundering Council.
talaga sinunod.
Definitely,
Sige.
sige po.
Sige, sagutin mo.
Definitely po, kinakailangan po namin makipag-cooperate sa anti-money laundering.
Ay, talaga mag-cooperate ka.
Tapos
Dante,
po, kung
Senator Dick,
Senator
Yes.
Dillon, you have a question?
Senator Dick, the first transaction of Fermali is 54 million.
Hmm.
The money that they had was 625,000. All right. So where did the 53 million come from? He said from bank accounts. Whose bank account? Because it cannot come. Ano? Ano?
Corporate
Corporate.
account, sagot niya.
Corporate. Corporate yung korporasyon ng pera? 625,000?
Mr. Chairman, on the screen, ito yung timelines, ano?
Oh.
Ewan ko kung sasisingit dito yung nakasingit sila para gamitin lang pera. Look, and I'd like to address these questions also to Mr. Lau, ano? January 2, you were appointed, and sabi mo nag-apply ka. Where is your letter of application? Do you have a copy to be appointed Undersecretary, OIC, PSDBM, at the same time, Executive Director?
It should be distinguished between the two. My statement is I applied as Undersecretary, which I was appointed to as Undersecretary in DBM. With respect to Executive Director, I never applied for it. It was already stated, I think, last year and this year, Senate investigation, that there was a vacuum when the Executive Director was removed from office by reason of lack of qualification.
Alam na natin yon, Attorney Lau, alam na natin yon. Huwag na natin ulitin. Ano? Okay.
After she was removed from office, there was a vacuum. I was instructed to be OIC only. So the Secretary of DBM was the one who executed the OIC. Yun po. So
Okay, alam na natin yan. Never mind.
Yes, sir.
February 4, you wrote the Civil Service Commission requesting that reclassify yung mga employees, yung mga staff sa PSDBM as confidential employees. Why did you do that?
When I took into office on January 2020, I noticed that a lot of positions have been vacant by reason of high turnover rate. Ang high turnover rate, mabilis po yung alisan dyan kasi nga walang security of tenure. Second po, when I took that position, na-notice ko rin po na very few are interested in applying. So, ang third din po, when I checked it, there was a structured proposal by a consultant of the previous executive director, Ms. Idine Cuevas, that they have this proposed structure kasi nga medyo problematic yung structure ng PSDBM. In fact, previous to me, PSDBM was being moved to be either demolished or when tanggalin na sila sa operations, or they will be incorporated as a GOCC. So based on that, as part of my professional work, I consulted the Civil Service Commission as to the feasibility whether or not these positions, which are crucial, can be or may not be considered as confidential positions. It's a consultation. However, there was no response for an entire year. Lacking the response, we continued operating the PSDBM in a usual manner based on the existing structure. Po.
Mr. Attorney Lau, dahil walang security of tenure, konti nag-a-apply, ang solusyon mo, gawing confidential employees. Hindi mo ba alam na ang confidential employees, wala rin security of tenure?
No, sir. That's part of it. Kasi nga, the purpose we wrote that letter, kasi nga mayroong mga concerns again, it's a point of inquiry. Hindi, we inquired if it can be. Kasi nga, part of the dilemma of the PSDBM status yun. Kasi if you look at until now, that's a problem eh. Mabilis.
Itong letter mo nakapla sa board, Attorney Lau.
Yes,
In
sir.
spite of the agency status, it is also vital for the agency head to appoint officials and personnel with utmost trust and confidence that are capable of handling highly confidential delegations on top of the regular functions.
Yes,
Anong
sir.
highly confidential? Procurement yung pag-uusapan natin. It should be transparent.
Yes, whether or not they're confidential or not, Mr. Chairman, it will be transparent because everything is public record and everything is on record. Even all the senator's office have confidential employees, but these are all transparent. Kahit saan po tayo ganun. So these director positions and EA positions, as for a formal ED, it's a nature of employment that they can be hired or fired at any time by reason of confidence. Whether slow ang performance, you can be fired. Kasi, di ba, it's an ongoing, recurring issue kasi before is the sales, the slow-moving items na hindi mabenta, yung operations namin, di ba? It's part of the system. And regardless kasi, it's being painted na there is an ill motive. Let me point it to the public. I was designated as OIC. Regardless whether this letter will be approved or denied, it will not make a difference on my part because I am not the appointing authority. The executive director has the authority to appoint, hire, or fire employees in PSDBM. However, I am an OIC based on the designation by the Secretary of Budget and Management. My only authority is to manage the office. I have no authority to hire or to fire. Now, that letter will not benefit me in any manner if it is approved or denied because I cannot hire or fire. But I wrote that letter as part of my function as OIC. In any event that there is a new executive director, they will benefit from it. It's a legal question. Diba? The only function, diba? The question is, pinagawa mo yan kasi gusto mo. No, I don't have the authority because I'm just an OIC. It is clear in the designation on my person that my only responsibility is to run the day-to-day operations of the office. The authority to appoint was not part of the ones dedicated to me. So whether or not that civil service letter would be acted upon positively or negatively, it will not affect my OIC designation. Second, it's a pure letter. Di ba? Oh, what difference does it make? It doesn't make any difference kasi a year after pa ang response ng civil service. On the third point, to say, kasi may predetermination yan, may plan there. I'll just answer it straight. February 4, there is no COVID.
Chairman, Mr.
I
Chairman,
make a plan, magkaka-COVID tayo.
Mr. Chairman,
Wala na.
Attorney Lau,
It's recognized. Go ahead, sir.
yeah. Attorney Lau said that 1 year pa nag-respond yung Civil Service Commission. Is that correct? Did I hear him correctly, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I believe so, Mr. Chairman. 1
Yeah.
year ba?
No, March 9, the CSE denied your request. Andiyan, no? Nasa timeline. And I have here the copy of the resolution signed by Chairperson De La Rosa Bala, Commissioner Lisada, and Acting Director for Del Moro. Hindi 1 year.
Yes.
Kasi
It's
denied
more
your
than a
request.
It's more than a year. It's more than a year because I wrote the letter on February 2020.
So that's
response-
March 9, 2021.
Yes, March 9, 2021 po. It's more than a year ang response nila. So
Anyway,
while they
moving-
make a response, we acted upon our function in the office remained the same as before I entered into office. So we just continued the operations, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, moving forward, let's go back to the transaction. Anyway, March 20, merong FDA circular. Ang requirement do sa mga importers ng PPEs, LTO, license to operate, and proof of application for notification, yun ang sufficient compliance for customs release. And then, on April 6, FDA Circular 2020-547, ang kailangan na lamang LTO sufficient na compliance for customs release. And true enough, April 15, ito na yung na-award na kayo ng 54 million pesos for the supply of 2.4 million surgical masks at 22 pesos and 50 centavos each. I'm referring to Palmari, of course. And then March 16 or April 16, dito yung nakasingit pa yung 2782, no? Ang presyo nyo kasi 22.50, 27.82 and 22 pesos per piece. And then, fast forward May 28, kasi marami na kayo, 3.8 billion na yung contract nyo ng 1,910 sets of PPEs. Tapos purchase order May 8. May 26, naglabas uli yung FDA Circular 2020-018, importers of PPE, LTO shall be sufficient compliance for the customs release. Importers are advised to apply CPN, Certificate of Product Notification, prior to commercial sale and distribution of medical services. And then November 9, LTO and CPN, pati yung CMDN for customs release. The reason why I'm pointing this out, Mr. Chairman, parang there's a grand scheme to really allow Palmari enough leeway to import all these medical supplies. That's the point I'm trying to raise, Mr. Chairman. And again, unless Mr. Lincoln Ong, Micheal Yang, and the rest of Palmari Pharmaceuticals, the incorporators, will tell us the truth in this hearing, then we can just speculate on what really happened, or the circumstances behind all these transactions. So I think I have exceeded my time, the time allotted to me, Mr. Chairman. Otherwise, I will have to proceed to another matter.
Mr. Chair,
Well,
Yes,
if you have more questions, the chairman has the leeway to allow you to continue the questions because you're on point. But I see Senator Dillon having a question. Go ahead, Senator Dillon.
yes.
Senator Dillon, you're on mute.
Yes. Just to go back to Mr. Lincoln Ong, here is a resource person who is clearly lying on the record because he says the funds were corporate funds of Fairvalley. But the financial statement, the audited financial statement, indicates that beginning of 2020, they had only 625,000, which is the paid up capital. Clearly, the corporation had no capacity to pay the initial order of 54 million. So it is not true at all. And there is a deliberate effort to mislead the committee by saying these are corporate funds. We asked him, who advanced this payment? He said it was from bank accounts of Union Bank or something. Who owns the bank accounts? He is already evasive. This witness, Mr. Chairman, is clearly lying. And in the case of Arnold, which is a 1950 case, this Senate has the power to detain, as we have detained people, until they tell us the truth. This witness is both evasive and refuses to answer or telling a lie. And therefore, he has been declared in contempt. Earlier, we move that the contempt order be now executed, and we send our sheriffs, our security people, to arrest Mr. Ong right now.
Yes.
Second.
Is that Mr. Lincoln? Are you raising your hand? You have a
Yes
chance
po.
to rectify the matter.
Will I be allowed to clarify on the
Just
issues?
said you have a chance to rectify the matter. You've been very, very evasive. The chair is giving you enough leeway to rectify the matter, but so far you've messed of yourselves, of Mr. Yang's statement and Mr. Wang's statement? Yes.
Mr.
You know what?
Chair,
You know what? I will change my ruling here. Will you please put your mask off? You are alone in the sala. I want to see because you keep looking upward. Is somebody dictating questions in an earphone to you?
ay, no, po, Mr. Chairman. Pwede ko po tanggalin ng
Take your
aking
mask off.
mask.
Just humor me. Okay, go ahead.
Mr.
What are
Chairman,
you gonna say?
Basta ano
Mr.
na lang.
Chairman, kasi po ang tanong kanina is tungkol dun po sa very specific allow me to take you point by point. Ang pinakaunang po transaction namin, our first ever transaction is 500,000 surgical mask. That time, I have access to supplier that the supplier is willing to give us the stocks. Pag nakapagkuha na kami ng bayad sa gobyerno, tsaka namin siyang babayaran. That same goes to the 54 million 2.4 million pieces and 10.
Meron bang
Ay,
TV
Mr. Chair, meron po akong mga records para po namin ma-explain po sa inyo na maayos.
Sige, paliwanag mo.
Opo. So, for the first ever transaction po na 500,000, may access po talaga kami sa inventory ng mga importers. Nung time niyan, wala pa kami, I don't think we have an importer license. So, yung importer mismo nagtitiwala naman po sa akin. So, binigay sa akin ng stocks para ma-supply ko kay PSDBM. And same goes on the 2.4 at 10
So you're
million.
changing your answer again. You're changing your answer again. Bago na naman to, nanghiram kayo doon sa may importer's license. Yung ba gusto mong paniwalaan namin?
Mr. Chairman.
Naman yan ang mahirap pag nagsisinungaling. Nagkakatampak-tampak ka sa lalakaran mo.
At saka hindi lang yun, Mr. Chairman. Sabi niya kanina, binayaran nila out of corporate funds.
Yes.
So now he's saying that this was loaned, this face mask and face shields were, I don't know, loaned to them, whatever is the transaction, which enabled them to supply it to the government. Ganun po ba yun? Kailan nangyari ito? Kailan nangyari ito? Kailan nangyari ang pag-deliver sa inyo ng supplier ng 500,000 face masks? Kailan?
Nung meron na pong kaming order from the PSDBM, pinadeliver ko na agad. At pag nakakuha kami bayad, babayaran na agad yung supplier.
Nga kayo kumuha ng bayad.
Ay, Mr. Chair, yung itong tatlo pong face mask, ano talaga, as in on credit talaga, as in binigay lang, pinautang lang talaga sa amin ng supply yung mga stocks. Pag nakapagkuha kami ng bayad, babayaran namin yung mga supplier.
Yun yung supplier na ni-refer ni Mr. Yang.
Ay, Mr. Chairman, yung kay Mr. Yang naman, yun yung malaking PPE na. Yun po yung kinakailangan namin ng tulong ni Mr. Yang.
At doon, nilabas
na. Nakikilang talaga si Mr. Yang.
Dito sa mga ibang transaction, hindi po talaga. Dito sa malaking transaction.
Niluloko mo ba kami? Doon na kailangan si Mr. Yang. Ngayon, hindi po talaga. Sino ba niluloko?
Mr. Chairman, I move to arrest this Mr. Lincoln Ong and detain him until he tells us, he answers the questions and not be evasive, and until he tells us the truth.
Second, Senator Lacson?
Yes, the same contempt citation should be issued against Michael Yang because earlier, when I asked him what role did he play, ang sagot niya, ang role niya lang was to introduce and then left them alone, which as it appears now is not the case because he played a major role in continuously dealing with the suppliers by way of guaranteeing that they will be paid by Mr. Ong.
Yes,
So,
very quick.
Upon yes,
the questions raised earlier by Senator Lacson. First, Mr. Yang said he had no connection with Farmally and learned only about Farmally in the news. That's on record. And then after which he changed his position. He said he only met Farmally in 2017 and never met them again. And then later on, Mr. Wang admits to knowing Mr. Lincoln Ong of Farmally. And then he says he introduced Lincoln on to the supplier. So he's just like the variant, just like the virus, his answers are mutating.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May we be allowed to speak?
Yes, of course. This is a free country.
我当时给他们介绍是，他们问我，我给他说你可以相信是邻里，他们没关系。我是口头给他们这个叫他们相信他。
Mr. Chairman, what Mr. Yang said is that at that time when he introduced Lincoln to the suppliers, is he also told them that they can trust Mr. Lincoln in terms of payment, that they can make their own payment. And this is a Chinese way of making or doing business is mainly because of trust.
They're public funds and they will be liable for it. And there are rules about money. You cannot just produce money from out of nowhere. Yan lang ipapaliwanag. You have to learn, you have to know that the money has got to be explained. All right? So, you know, it cannot be like that. And let me just say, let me just ask a question to Mr. Yang. Mr. Yang, you do not speak any language except Chinese?
你除了中文不会讲其他的语言吗？
你跟他说我会一点点大家乐，可是我这种没办法很新的，我没办法跟他们。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he knows a little bit of Tagalog.
Yes, all right.
But
You've been here since 1996, is that correct?
一点点。
Yeah.
You've been here since 1996. Correct?
对，只要跟他说我99年来菲律宾。
Yeah, he was here 1999, Mr. Chairman.
1999. Okay, I know that you were here 1996. I got some information like that, no? But you are the appointed presidential economic advisor. How did you communicate to the president then?
那你怎么当时你是怎么跟那个
I'm sure the president does speak Chinese.
经济顾问你
跟他
怎么跟他沟通？
说平时简单的会，重要的我们都有翻译。
Normally, they would be having an interpreter present, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, let me show you your movie. Okay, can you show the meeting in? And I will ask the Senate to please take a look at how familiar the situation is for Mr. Yang. Very confident.
说什么？
他会播一个视频。
Quickly, please, and while we're doing that, show the other picture.
Yan ang kaya nabaw lang araw mo. Tapos na kayo na.
You're talking to the president.
Meron isang wala, tapos na. Okay na.
Ano bisita mamaya Sherry?
Tagalog pa pala siya.
Yan ang kaya nabaw lang araw.
Correct?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we didn't hear your question.
You're the one introducing to everybody. You had a big smile in your face. You were very confident.
介绍嘛，可以说。
你跟他说我有跟他说我大家乐我不会很多，我会一点。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying that his Tagalog has limitation.
因为你开会我们听
Sorry?
不。
His Tagalog has limitation, Mr. Chairman.
Yan ang kaya nabaw lang.
Only simple ones.
But all I'm saying is, do not make it appear that you need a translator because you're the presidential economic advisor, and you have to speak somewhere in English or in Tagalog. And if you have an interpreter, you're in Malacanang, which is the corridor of principal power in this country, and that could, and then you can say you don't understand it, and that's one of the advantages that you may have. There you go, another picture that shows you're talking to the president. It's the president's office or somewhere else.
说我给你解释我种普通的简单的会啦。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying
Trying to make a point here that you can speak to the president in Tagalog or English or whatever it is you're speaking to.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying that he can converse casually but with limited Tagalog only.
That's already pointed out. All right.
Yes.
I can ask you in Tagalog and I'm sure you'll understand. After all, you've been here for the last 22 years.
非语问你，你肯定会。
要说我这个我一般，要说我有简单的会有一部分我没办法全部理解，我没办法答复。
Mr. Chairman, in terms of Tagalog, he may not be able to 100% grasp the proper
I'm
meaning.
willing to accept that already.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
Tatanungin ko lang ngayon, sino ba ang nagsabi kay Ong
Ha Xiang
na
Wen is
Yang lumapit?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat the question? Sino po
Going back to
nagsabi?
Mr. Ong.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave the chairman's video, may I just ask a follow-up
Please,
question?
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Yang, talking again about that video that the chairman
关
showed,
于刚才那个视
who are
频
the，two men to your right in the video?
那两个人在
One
你
of
的右
them,
边是
Mr.
谁？
Zeng Bing Chang, and isn't the other one
一
Mr.
个是
Alan
郑
Lim?
炳强，一个是 Alan Lim 吗？
要说这个是我朋友，这样说郑炳强跟阿兰林，给他说林伟雄，这个林伟雄是给他说是林伟雄，是我朋友。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying that the two person, that is one Zheng Pingqiang and the other one is Lin Weixiong. These are his friends.
So is Mr. Lin Wei Xiong the same as Mr.
在
Alan
问
Lim?
林伟雄是跟 Alan Lim 一个人吗？
我不知道，
He doesn't know, Mr. Chairman.
I'll leave it at that for now, Mr. Chairman, but I think Mr. Yang knows more than he is answering at this moment. Thank you very much, Mr.
That's why
Chairman.
he's under contempt. He's not very forthright. I have many pictures of Mr. Wang with Mr. Lim. Can you show the other pictures, please? And now you got this. I did research. I didn't have to research it. I just had to look at some newspaper accounts. There. Mr. Wang, is that Alan Lin again?
问这个是不是 Alan Lim？
你不要说我只有认识他叫林伟雄，我13年才认识他。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang saying that he get to know Mr. Lin Weixiong only on 2013 by the name of Lin Weixiong.
That was not my question. Okay, but anyway, what is his name? Lin Weixiong.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Lin Weixiong.
In fact, he was the same guy that was charged with
他说他这个人
involvement in drugs. And I'll show you the charge sheet.
这个你们要去调查，我不知道。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang.
I have to go because the other senators have said that you're lying. So just want to test your credibility again.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.